out right away before I forget?
Yeah, so I had the privilege of going to Keller Williams corporate office, and I met with the coordinator of the Keller Williams Wellness Ambassadors. And we had a great conversation. Her name is Alex Garland. And they're working really hard. The wellness program with Keller Williams is working really hard to set up a Be Well program. And so every month this year in 2018, there's something special that we're focusing on. And so for the month of April, focusing on getting enough sleep, because we all know how important it is.
Very relevant for me.
I know. So we're supposed to get 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night.
You picked the wrong day to talk to me about. Sorry, I interrupted.
Well, and it's really hard when you have little ones. I mean, I can remember that.
So Carly rolled over to me in bed last night, and this is what she said. I'm pretty sure we're only having 2 kids. Because she knows I want 4.
And honestly, that is one of the reasons why we stopped at 2 is because, and my age. I mean, Anyway.
Sorry.
So, no, that's okay. But, it just, data has proven that people who get 6 to 8 hours of sleep and eat a healthy diet are just healthier overall. So I'm here to promote that because I'm a firm believer that we need our rest because our body has to regenerate and rejuvenate. It helps our stress level and all of that. So I have this handy little tracking tool for you to track your sleep this month. Cool. So I was telling Aaron Perlberg about this, and actually he and I are forming a wellness committee, and if any of you are interested in joining us to plan some events for the Market Center, please feel free to have a conversation with either myself or Aaron about that. But I was talking about sleep with Aaron, and he actually has this handy little app on his phone, and he pulled it out, and his phone, the app on his phone showed like every night for the past several days where he has had his phone on his nightstand, it tracked, like apparently according to his breathing, like the hours that he was actually sleeping. So apparently we breathe differently when we're in REM than we are if we're just, sitting in bed reading a book or whatever. So if you, can find a free app, I haven't located it. My phone doesn't have that capability built in, but I'm sure that there are apps available to you. You're also going to hear me talking more about apps that are going to be available to us. As you know, in 2017, Keller Williams collaborated with Fitbit, and we now have the opportunity to purchase Fitbits at a reduced rate. I'll be posting those in the copy room over there so that if you want and to take that opportunity, you can. Like, it's a pretty good reduced rate. But now Keller Williams Wellness is focusing on talking to vendors who have apps that will work really well on those Fitbits to help us be healthier. So that's kind of what's coming down the pike for wellness. Right now it's about sleep. In May, it's prevention month. So we're going to set up a time when a nurse will come in and take blood pressure. If any of you are interested in having your blood pressure taken, it's really important to find out where you're at so that you can improve your health overall. And in June 7th is Keller Williams Wellness Day. And so it's going to be celebrated across every market center across the United States. And we're planning on putting together a 5K. So if any of you want to have input on that, Aaron and I are just in the beginnings of talking about where and what time of the day and things like that. So that's coming up June 7th. But for now, I'm going to just give you a sleep tracker. And
thank you, man.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Aaron's Mr. 5 a.m. up in the morning in the gym. So he's a great guy to partner with. Thank you, Trudy, for everything you do as our wellness ambassador.
My pleasure.
As I get older, it becomes more and more relevant and pertinent to me, and the importance of diet, exercise, and sleep is absolutely critical. Carly and I, we bought a sleep number bed recently because we knew what we were getting ready to get ourselves into, Debbie. And my parents highly recommended it, and it does the same thing. It tracks every night how well you sleep. Yeah, how good. Restful sleep, your breaths, all that fun stuff, which is super, super neat. Okay, thank you very much. A couple of announcements that I want to cover really quick. First and foremost, if you wouldn't mind, take one, pass it around. A reminder that Win with Sellers, when Gene Rivers is coming to town is coming to the Twin Cities on April 12th. Cost is just a tad over $100 from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Gene's great. I know people have already shared in team meetings in the past how much they love Gene. He's a phenomenal instructor. It's a steal of a deal, in my humble opinion, when it comes to this course. Hey, Melissa, how are you? So if you can get there, I highly encourage you, highly recommend. I'd love to get at least 5 people up to that event, and it'll be a phenomenal time. Any questions about that at all? If listings is something that you desire more of, I would highly recommend you be there. This guy crushes it. He absolutely crushes it. So just a reminder about that. Okay, a couple other things coming up on the horizon. So obviously there's not much left this month. Just a reminder that next Monday, since it's Easter weekend, the office will be closed. So the office is closed next Monday, just as a heads up. If you want to get any listings in, make sure that you do it by Friday. Otherwise, you have to wait till Tuesday.
Zach, I have one thing to add on the calendar. So Thursday.
Oh, I'm sorry, I completely missed it.
No, that's okay. I forgot about it too. Thursday is our last healthy living workshop, and Denise Stiegel is a health coach. She's coming in to do a food demonstration and then to share lunch. I've only heard from just a handful of you. Are any of you interested in coming? It's at 11 o'clock, and I sent out the menu. It's pretty phenomenal. But
wait a minute, we get fed by attending?
We do.
Okay.
But if I don't have enough people, we're not going to do it.
How many do you have currently?
I have 2 positive yeses besides myself and 2 maybes.
How many do you need?
Well, I mean,
how many you can get?
Yeah, I mean, we should have at least 6 people there.
Okay.
5 or 6.
Okay.
Anyway, let me know.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Meeting over?
Yeah, meeting over. No, I can't forget, because otherwise I'll get in trouble with Nikki. I remember now. She gave me this whole sheet of future dates. Cannot get in trouble. So, April, key dates, little bit better, is Thursday, April 26th from 1 to 3 p.m. That's here in Rochester. 2 men in a truck will be here at noon to provide lunch. Then we'll go out and do what we do every year, which is go up and pick up litter along the street here.
What was that date?
The 26th of April.
Okay.
26th, according to Nikki. Get your Red Day shirts ordered before April 25th. The order form is on the back counter in the resource room. Every May we do Red Day where we go out, we do some great volunteer work throughout the community. We're in the process of organizing all of that right now. If you'd like to have a Keller Williams red shirt for that day, please order one. We highly encourage you to do so. If you have one from the past, that's fine. Just wear that one again. There will be a baby shower hosted after the first team meeting in April. Watch for an email invite. That's going to be for 3 lovely ladies in the Market Center. They're expecting. Melissa Gregg is one of them. She announced at the awards ceremony, which was kind of fun. I felt like I was at the Oscars a little bit. And then Nellie and Tamra. So we're going to have a joint baby shower for all those lovely ladies. Nikki's going to be providing some information about that to you. And then we haven't finalized April's calendar yet. It'll be finalized by the end of this week. But just know that the team meetings in April, and some of them even into May, are likely going to take place on Wednesdays because Bold's going on, and Bold's on Tuesdays. So we got at least a half a dozen people going through Bold right now. So we're going to shift those team meetings to Wednesdays over the next few weeks, just as a heads up. You'll see it on the calendar though when we publish it. And again, just a reminder about the Sellers Workshop with Gene.
So the 11th and 25th are probably the team meetings?
Probably. If I were a betting person.
Yeah, so like the 11th is the 2nd Wednesday.
Yeah, more than likely. Yep. Unless something crazy comes up. Every once in a while we get thrown an event from region that we have to adjust around. So there'll be some information coming out about this too. April Open House Madness. We're going to do a competition among the office across all locations. Basically, whoever holds the most open houses throughout the months of April will win a prize for first, second, and third place. More information about that to come. Just to give you an idea, second place is a $75 accounts receivable credit. Third place is a $50 gift card to Five West. And first place is still up in the air. We'll see what that price is going to be. Okay, any questions? Anything else coming down the horizon? We good? I didn't miss anything? Anything else we do the order? Are you sure, Leanne? You look like you had something. You just wore out from Bold yesterday. So.
Are you taking Bold yet? No.
We got that on camera.
Sorry.
That's okay. She was just up there for the first step. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Today we're going to spend some time talking about not just housing here in Rochester, but I want to talk about the economy as a whole. And I want to talk about what that means for you, for our industry, and for your consumers, right? Because Gary Keller tells us to be the what?
Honest of
The
choice.
local economist of choice, right? When people are asking you what's going on in the market, what's going on in the economy, for us to have an understanding of how it drives our industry and what we do as professionals is extremely important. Then if we have time after that, we're going to dive into a little bit of a case study on a company called Netflix. And we're going to see what one thing distinguished and led to that company's success that if applied to our businesses, we could probably benefit from as well. Sound good? All right. So first and foremost, I have some updated numbers from CMAR. All right. So we're going to look at housing overall across the association. Then we'll dive into Rochester. So let's look at absorption rate. So these are year-to-date numbers, year-to-date.
End of February, as of end of February.
As of end of February. These have updated slightly since I gave them to you last. Brad's like, yes, these numbers sound super exciting. Okay, absorption rate. 2017, it was 2.2. And 2018, it's just 2. And absorption rate is what again?
Months of inventory.
Months of inventory. So we've decreased by almost 10% year-to-date so far in terms of inventory. I know we're thinking from last year, my God, could we seriously decrease anymore? Well, we have slightly, at least in the first quarter. Yes, sir.
Explain that again.
Yeah, so in a balance, so months of inventory means it would roughly take, if we stopped listing properties today, it would roughly take us about 2 months to sell off all of our inventory, right? Everybody tracking? In a balanced market, we like to see our inventory or our absorption rate to be what? 3 to 5, 4 to 6. Those are 2 ranges I often hear, right? That's in a balanced market. So if in a balanced market, it's 3 to 5 months of inventory, and we're at 2, what does that tell us? So unbalanced in which way though? There's a shortage, there's an inventory shortage, right? We've got a supply issue, which has done what to demand? Right. Okay, so average list price, 2018, 251 compared to 2017 of 224, that's up 12%. Median list price is up 16%. Average sale price is up 9.4%. Median sale price is up 8.4%. Our average days on market is down nearly 10%, which you would expect, right, with the absorption rate decreasing. So let's look at number of sold listings so far year to date as of February. Total sold listings, 532 compared to 570. So sold listings down just under 7%. Pending totals, 710 were pending in 18 compared to 719 in 2017. So only down just about 1% in terms of pendings. Active listings. Total active listings in February of 2018, 1,785 compared to 1,975 in 2017. So active listings are down 10%. That's where we're seeing that decrease in the absorption rate.
And that's throughout.
This is throughout. We'll get to Rochester in just a minute. New listings, 731 this year compared to 804 last year. Again, down just about 9%. So we're still seeing and sensing that shortage. So let's talk about Rochester specifically. These numbers are crazy. What do you think? So I just gave you the absorption rate for all of CMAR. And CMAR covers what? Southeast Minnesota. So we go about as far north on 52 to where? About Cannon Falls, right? Cannon Falls is kind of, it's in purgatory. It's a little bit of both MLSs, right? And if we go east to the border to Wisconsin, where does CMAR North Star kind of cut off? What city? Red Wing. Red Wing is predominantly which one? North Star. Red Wing is predominantly North Star. So south of Red Wing, you're going to get into CMAR territory. Obviously, the southern portion goes to Iowa, or basically a foreign country. All right. And then as we go west, what's kind of the cutoff west? Yeah, northwest is definitely Owatonna. Wells. You're our Albert Lee guy, right? Pretty much Albert Lee. Yeah. Right. If you take 35 and you just kind of follow 35 south, you're pretty much, that's the cutoff of CMAR, but it does include majority of Albert Lee as well, right? So when we talk about CMAR, that's why the numbers are so different. Because if you look at Rochester specific, and then you start comparing it to your Austins, your Albert Lees, your Winonas, price point differences, right? So that's why we look at both of them. So Rochester, absorption rate. We said it was 2 for all of CMAR. What do you think it is here in Rochester?
1.5.
Debbie, that's pretty darn good. 1.42. About a month and a half. About a month and a half's worth of inventory, which, oh, by the way, is down about 2.75%. So we have decreased year over year. Now listen to this. This is where it's getting nuts. This is where, so I have not been a little bit nervous before, and then I looked at these numbers again this morning. I was kind of like, okay, this is a little nuts.
Yeah.
Average list price in 2018 year to date, 333,404, compared to 2017, 298,971. Somebody had their coffee this morning. Almost a $40,000 increase in terms of average list price. Now, this price is important, but it's not as relevant as what? Actual sale price, right? But our average list price has increased 12.8% so far this year. 12.8%. So let me remind you of the class that's coming that Gene Rivers is teaching called Win with Sellers and why listings are so absolutely critical, right? Because that would be a nice bandwagon to jump on. I don't know about you, but the market is increasing all of our pay right now. Would you agree?
Yeah.
It's basically telling you if you sell the same amount of,
Can't sell anything because there's,
unless you have the listings,
300 homes for sale with 700 realtors in Rochester is not a lot
right?
to go
But how
around.
many of those agents are actually full time? Not many. Right. Okay, so let's look at the median list price, which is going to give it a little bit more context. So median list price in 18 is $290 compared to about $250 in 2017. But still, that's an increase of about 16.5%. So far, we're double-digit numbers in both categories, right? In a balanced market, what type of home appreciation do we like to see? 3 to 5%. Right. So we're blowing well past that.
But you can see that even, I mean, when you look at 315 listings or 325 listings, whatever we have, and 140 of them are over 400,000. So I mean, over 3/4 of them are over 300,000. I mean, all that affordable living doesn't. No one's selling it.
You're right to use quotes. I think absolutely. Average sale price year to date $265 compared to $226 last year for an increase of over 17%. That's your average. Your average sale price in Rochester has gone up nearly 20%. That's unreal. If in Albert Lea, it'd be okay. It's like, hey, we've gone up $5. I'm just kidding, Jacob. I'm just kidding. It might be closer to 4. But in Rochester, that's insane. I mean, we're talking, that's close to $30,000, $40,000 increase in average sale price across the board, right? Which, raise your hand if that's great news. Yeah, raise your hand if it's also somewhat alarming. Absolutely. It's the good and bad, okay? But this is why we as professionals need to know and understand this and communicate it to the consumer. Median sale price went from $190 to $224. Again, over a 17% increase. And now this is interesting to me. Our average days on market have gone up slightly from 52 to 60, but our median days on market have stayed the same, about a month, 31 days. Why do you think we've seen a slight uptick in average days on market even though our absorption rate has decreased? It's at higher price points. It's at higher price. We've had an increase in higher price points, which sit on the market a little bit longer, but we're still overall selling very rapidly. Does that make sense?
Can be an indicator though too.
Of
Change.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, yeah, I agree 100%. So here's the interesting thing. In Rochester, our sold listings have actually increased year to date by 2.8%. It's not bad. 2018, so far 218 units have sold compared to 212 in 2017. So that's good news, right? I want to circle back up real quick because I wanted to summarize this. In terms of average list price, median list price, average sale price, median sale price, every single one of them was double digits. Every single one of them was over 15%. That's unreal appreciation. And by the way, what months did we just go through? We went through our worst months. In our worst months, we've seen that kind of appreciation. That's nuts. But we're also about to see, what typically happens this time of year. We'll see an increase of inventory, which might help balance that out a little bit, right? But still, that's pretty unreal. Pending listings. This year so far, we're at 306 compared to 315 last year. So that even though our sold listings are up by about 2.8%, our pending listings are down by about 2.9% in Rochester. Active listings, a total of 583 compared to 621 this time last year, down 6%. New listings, we're at 303 compared to 326 this time last year, so we're down 7%. Okay, so what does all that mean? What are we feeling and seeing in the market right now?
I saw this morning, I had listed a house on 50th Avenue Northwest, and 3 signs went up over the weekend. Same price too.
So Jim, what is that telling us?
We're starting to list again.
We're probably going to see some more inventory come on the market, right? We're getting to that point where we're going to be through March into April. April triggers what market? Spring market. Hello Easter. Do your Easter egg hunt and then come back. We're in the spring market. It's going to be busy, right? More inventory coming. So now would be the time to call and follow up on any and all listing leads you have or had over the last few months or year. Call everybody back up again. Right? Say, hey, we're about ready to hit the spring market. It's going to be a phenomenal time. Are you still thinking about potentially selling your home? Have that conversation. So we know inventory is down. Jim's saying it's getting busier. We're probably going to see some more come on the market. What else is the market telling us?
Do it now.
The market's always telling us that, right?
Yeah. Well, it's going up so fast that it's almost a frightening thing for people to consider. And if I wait next year, it's going to be 40,000 more. I was thinking.
Well, I think one thing the market is telling us is that, one of the reasons why inventory is so low is because sellers who are considering selling,
They're freaked out.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're like this, like, ooh, I get to sell my house, I'm gonna make a ton of money, this is gonna be awesome. But then they go over here and like, oh my God, if we sell our house, what are we gonna do? I'm gonna be homeless, I don't know where to go. Right? So they're in that weird position to where, hey, I would love to cash in this cash cow, but if I do that, right? But we've talked about how we can safeguard against that, which is how.
Well, it would be a contingency on the purchase.
Right. We're gonna list our home for sale and we will accept an offer contingent upon us finding our next property. And in this kind of market, can you get away with that? You absolutely can. So use that to get people off the fence that say, hey, we truly would like to sell, but we're just really freaked out right now that we won't find a place to buy. Well, hey, we can build a safeguard in there to allow you that flexibility. And oh, by the way, what we know right now is in this market, buyers will go for it because I want a home that bad, right? So inventory's down. To Leanne's point, hey, things are getting a little bit crazy. Is there going to be a shift or a correction at some point? What's coming? And what I like now to your point is, hey, it might be time to consider acting now. Because I just read off those double digit percentages. Well, what were those percentages last year? They were also double digit. And what were they the year before that?
Double digit.
Thank you, Debbie. They were also double digit. So raise your hand if like me, you've been telling buyers for the last 3 to 4 years, every day that goes by is the best time to buy a home because prices are only going up. Well, guess what? We can show them now, hey, in 2015, 2016, 2017, now coming into 2018, home prices are appreciating by double-digit percentages year over year over year. If you know you want to buy, we have a pretty good idea of what's going to keep happening. So finish the thought for me. What should they consider doing?
I know, or the house you're gonna buy is gonna be nice.
Right. Buy now if you can, because they're only going to become more expensive in the future. And we'll talk about that in just a minute too, right? But that's using, because if I just say, hey, Brad, here's the deal, man. I know we kind of know each other. It's good to see you again. How are you? Hey, if you thought about buying a house recently, it's a good time. What does Brad think about that? Thanks.
Time for you because you're gonna make some money.
Yeah, thanks, sales and realtor guy. I appreciate that, right? Okay, cool. Okay, versus, hey, Melissa, Zach, how are you? Hey, I know we talked not that long ago, you were thinking about buying a home. I just want to let you know over the last 3 years, we've seen double-digit home appreciation, which means affordability is getting tougher and tougher. If it's something that you and your family want to do, I highly recommend you consider doing it sooner rather than later because next year is probably going to cost you even more.
Hey, you're looking out for my interest.
Thank you. Right, that's the difference. I want to go from me appearing to be, salesy and trying to pressure somebody to buy a home because of what they interpret as my self-interest versus say, this is purely educational. I'm using my sales expertise and market knowledge to let you know, do this if you want to, because if it doesn't happen, if you don't do it now, it's only going to go up. Right? How many of you had clients that you carried over from 17 to 18 that had an oh crap moment when it came to their monthly payment? What happened? what happened between the end of 17 coming into the beginning of 18 if somebody wasn't under contract on a home yet?
Rate.
The rate increased, which meant what? Their monthly payment increased, which meant what?
More money out.
We went from looking at $300,000 homes to looking at $275,000. And you're paying the same, if not more, than had you locked up a $300,000 property in November or December versus now in January or February. I know that for a fact because I had conversations with my wife about clients that said, holy crap, we've got to relook and readjust things because I just had my rates recalculated or my payments recalculated with new interest rates, and we can't afford what we were just looking at a month ago. Be on the front end of those conversations with your clients and help them realize the benefit to acting now, right? Okay, inventory shift or correction, acting now. And is a shift or a correction necessarily a bad thing? No, I mean, no, yes and no. I mean, we need it to happen at some point, right? It will happen at some point. The only question is, are we going to head it off before it gets to a dangerous level? Or will it be corrected, you know, with a little bit of moderation so it doesn't just blow up the entire system?
Well, that is the question, right?
It is. We'll talk about that. So these would be three things that I'm looking at from those market statistics, keeping in the back of my mind and having conversations with my clients, right? And remember, it's purely coming from an educational standpoint, right? I'm not using this to sell you anything,
right,
other than my services and my expertise. What I am doing is providing you education about the market to help you make the decision that you determine is best for you, right? So let's talk a little bit more. Yes, sir.
Is one option ever to consider selling now and renting for a year or two?
Absolutely. Yeah, you certainly can. You certainly can. And part of my conversation with you would be this: if we could sell now, you can rent for a year or two. You know, you're not going to build any equity in a year or two from now. Home prices might be that much more expensive. But if you want to do that because you want to cash in on your property now, by all means, that's certainly something to consider. Absolutely. So here's what I want to talk about. On March 21st, what happened? Oh, I know a lot happened.
Rates went up 0.25%.
Did you hack my computer, Debbie? She's all over it today. Good work. March 21st, the Fed voted to raise interest rates by 1/4 percentage point to a range of 1.5 to 1.75. Does not affect fixed mortgage rates, obviously, but who does it affect? If you have what? Yeah, if you already own a home right now and you have this kind of a rate, will it affect you?
It just,
An ARM. If you've got an ARM, guess what? You didn't have good news come March.
HELOCs too, actually.
That sounds terrible, right? But ARMs, you know, I don't want to give ARMs a bad name because they gave themselves one a decade ago, but there've been a lot of changes to ARMs that actually make them a pretty useful tool. There's a lot of caps on how much they can raise per year and overall total, right? But that being said, if you're in an ARM right now and interest rates just went up versus going down like they have been for a while, you probably just saw your payment go up a little bit, right? Which means you might want to potentially sell or refinance, which is relevant information for us. Okay, but let's talk about what this really means. As the Fed boosts rates on financial institutions, banks turn around and lift interest rates on credit cards, auto loans, small business loans, and home mortgages. Credit card debt is at an all-time high, according to the consumer credit reporting company Experian. They're the one that track your credit rating, right? There are a record number of Americans with auto loans, according to Fed data. Credit card debt in particular often comes with a floating or variable interest rate. So when the Fed hikes the rates, those rates go up as well. So what's one of your takeaways when you hear that credit card debt is at an all-time high? If someone has debt, to include credit card debt, what does that do to their purchase power? It decreases it, right? It decreases it by somewhat, okay? The Fed faces a delicate challenge over how quickly to raise rates this year and the next. If it hikes too quickly, it could cause the stock market and the economy to slow or even tank. But if it does it too slowly, it could cause the economy to overheat, a scenario that could trigger an even uglier bust. Well, which of those two right now do you think we're experiencing?
Slow.
If it lifts rates too slowly, it could cause the market to overheat, decreased inventory, double-digit appreciation, sales prices, etc. It could cause trigger with an even uglier bust, right? Because for how long have they been saying we should increase rates? Yeah, when you say a long time, what do you mean? We're talking years,
Yeah.
right? Like at least
Oh,
3-4 years they've been saying we need to raise rates, we need to raise
Remember in
rates.
2013, got 2%. Unbelievable. We
Unreal,
were like,
unreal. But what's one reason why they have not raised rates?
well, everybody, the
Did
growth that happened, lowering.
To not affect the affordability index, right? We want people buying homes, right? Well, now they're at the point where they finally realized, or they're finally admitting, we need to do something to slow this down, where it's gonna get to a point where it's just completely outrageous, which I don't know if anybody has a pulse on the economy right now, realtors are one of them. Because if you're working with buyers right now, or if you're listing, I'm talking to people that are listing homes, I'm talking 30 to 60 showings in a weekend. 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 offers in a matter of 2 days on properties. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a sign of the economy and what's going on. That's just not for the housing market. No, that's what's going on in the economy, right? And how you start, it's a sign of a potential, well, we're getting a little bit crazy, so how do we start adjusting for it, right? We're forecasting 4 hikes this year. One of them already took place on the 21st. This was an article dated the 20th. Forecasting 4 hikes this year. This seems to be the most sensible course, raising rates at each of the 4 regularly scheduled Fed news conference meetings, said a guy who reps some bank, right? So a lot of the experts out there that are looking at this situation in the economy are projecting a total of 3 more rate hikes by the end of the year. 4 rate hikes in 2018 will put interest rates at 2.25% to 2.5% by the end of the year. Well, at the beginning of this article, I said we were already at what? We're at about 1.5 to 1.75. So saying by the end of the year, we should be at about 2.25 to 2.5. That's not your home loan interest rate APR. That's the Fed rate, and then other stuff gets tacked on that, right? Still very low by historical standards. Interest rates were over 5% for much of the boom years in the late 1990s, but Americans haven't seen anything much above 0 for a decade. So what's the frame of reference for the consumer, especially first-time homebuyers, when it comes to interest rates?
They're low and they should stay that way.
They've been spoiled.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. They've been spoiled. All they've ever known are unreal, like you said before, unbelievable interest rates. So any tiny adjustment up is unreal or unfathomable to them, right? When in reality, we have to help them realize, hey, even if each of these 3 rate hikes took place this year, interest rates are still unreal. Historically, comparatively, they're still unreal. So we have to do a good job of communicating that to our clients. We also have to communicate that to our clients that say this, well, Zach, we're thinking about buying a home. We could do it now, but we might wait closer to the end of the year.
No.
I would exercise a little bit more of a filter. But here's where we're walking a tightrope, right? Because if you're anything like me, you get passionate about this. And you start talking about it, and you don't want people to confuse your passion for you trying to sell them on something. I'm not trying to sell you to do it sooner. That's only a decision that you can make. What I am trying to do is educate you about what's going to happen, because what I don't want you to do is come back in December and be angry with me because I didn't tell you in April what was probably going to happen in terms of affordability and your monthly payment and home prices, right? So I'm just doing my due diligence and the fiduciary obligation I owe to you, just to educate you about the market. Hey, here's the deal. This is what's going on right now. This is what the experts are forecasting to happen by the end of the year. So if you know 2018 is the year for you, it would likely be in your best interest to do it sooner rather than later. If you choose to wait, that's fine. I'll be here to help you. But just know that's something we want to keep an eye on, right? Stay in touch with your lender. I'll make your lender the bad guy. Just kidding. The Fed was forced to cut interest rates to historically low levels during the Great Recession in an effort to revive the U.S. economy and prevent more banks from bankruptcy. It was an unprecedented move, but now the Fed is facing an equally unprecedented task: getting America comfortable with more normal interest rates again after years of easy credit and fast money. The debate is even more complicated after Trump's tax cuts and the roughly $500 billion Congress plans to spend. I'm not getting political here, just quoting an article. I like tax cuts too. All this additional money is likely to cause faster growth in the coming months, potentially forcing the Fed to raise rates faster, right? If all of a sudden we're triggering a huge economic boom where we're speeding up the economy, one of the issues we have right now is our rates are already lagging behind, well, that can force us to increase them sooner. So if you're a home buyer right now, a potential home buyer in 2018, what is this article telling you? Buy now. Due to evidence, analysis, and what the experts are saying, not just some salesy realtor up here who wants you to buy and close on a home. They're telling you right now what's likely going to happen as a result of what's going on in the economy, as it relates to interest rates, as it relates to the tax cut, what Congress is doing, what the president is envisioning, what the likely implications for the economy are. Quarters 3 and 4, you're going to have a higher interest rate and homes are going to be more expensive, right? So keep that in the back of your head. Okay, and we'll talk about this in more in just a minute. Then there's also Trump's push for more tariffs. While the impact of steel and aluminum tariffs is expected to be modest, Trump is expected to announce hefty tariffs on some Chinese imports soon, potentially launching a trade war. In December, the Fed predicted the U.S. economy would grow at 2.5% in 2018, and that the Fed would hike interest rates 3 times. Now there's a growing chorus of economists and traders who believe the Fed will indicate Wednesday that the economy will expand even faster, and the Fed is likely to raise rates 4 times. So what's interesting is, I said this article was dated when? On the 20th. What's happened last week?
Stormy Daniels.
I don't know what you've been watching, Leanne. She said Stormy Daniels. I don't know who that is. But aside from what the president might like to do on late nights, what's gone on? Because we're just talking about as of March 20th, the economy is roaring. It's going crazy. This is unreal. Well, if you've been watching the news the last week, what have they been saying about it? What did the stock market do? We need to build a wall. Stock market had a huge downturn, right? But that was largely fueled by what?
Interest rates.
Some of it was interest rates. Some of it interest rates. Some of it's tariffs. Has it already started rebounding a little bit?
Yep.
It has. It has. What's the other big thing out there that led to a sharp decrease?
Facebook.
Thank you, Jim. One company in particular, Facebook. Huge. We're talking billions of dollars lost in stock value in the course of a few days due to
Misuse of it.
misuse of data, alleged misuse of data, et cetera, right? But it's not just Facebook, because I check my stocks almost every day, and every single one of them was down, right? And to me, that's a sign of what the economy is doing, right? We have tax cuts, and that's great. Okay, now we've got these tariffs, we've got a little bit of uncertainty in the market. We're talking about increasing interest rates, right? So we're seeing a little bit of that play out in the economy. A month from now, we'll probably be right back. All signs pointing to green, coasting back up there, but we have to keep this in the back of our minds, be paying attention to it, and how quickly things can change, right? Economists largely agree the U.S. economy and the world economy is looking very healthy right now. Wednesday's rate hike would signal continuing economic strength. Unemployment is at the lowest level in nearly 2 decades, and growth is showing strong signs of picking up, which will allow the Fed to increase rates without too much harm. So what are your takeaways, your ahas from that dialogue? How does this impact your business and your interaction with your clients? Because it really does. This is what separates you from just an average agent. It turns you into the deadly business professional that people seek out to do business with, right? Contrary to what many people might try to help you or make you think, you are not just a commodity. I had a conversation with a guy over the weekend. I was at Army training this weekend, and he comes up to me. We're in the same unit. He said, "Hey, sir, I know you're in real estate. I'm looking at selling my home for sale by owner. Can I ask you some questions?" I said, "Absolutely. I'll help you any way that I can." Right? And then I talked to him on the phone last night because I said we were getting ready to leave. I said, "Call me. I'll answer some questions for you." He said, "Yeah, I'm looking to sell. I want to save the money. I want to save the commission." Right? No judgment. I mean, heck, I would too. I'm no dummy, right? But what is that guy's mindset or his thought process saying when it relates to us?
He thinks he can do it just as well as you can.
Right, he thinks he can do it just as well. He doesn't see a need for us. That there's a lack in demonstrating what?
Value.
Value. There's a lack in demonstrating value to the consumer, right? Because they know they can call anybody. They could just call any realtor in the phone book. Somebody would show up and somebody would list a home, right? But are all realtors created equally? Absolutely. Heavens no. Some are what?
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say dumb. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Well,
She
Be
refers
careful,
those dumb people to those
Yeah,
dumb
right.
realtors.
The biggest differentiator and separator is your individual skill sets, your expertise, your knowledge, what you're bringing to the table for your clients, right? And this is a part of it. This is a piece of that puzzle. So I'm still waiting for some ahas or some takeaways. Bless you.
Cap rates will start to rise.
Okay, so tell me more about that. That's good news for what kind of people?
Investors.
Absolutely. So when interest rates increase, I talked about how it can be bad for some people, but it's also very good for a lot of others. Who's it good for?
People with cash.
People with cash, specifically where?
Investment side of real estate.
Yeah, or in banks in general, right? Because they're going to get higher rates. They're still not getting a ton, but which institutions love it when rates go up?
Lenders.
Lending, banks, they love it. Guess what? If you're invested in Wells Fargo and the Fed hikes rates, what's going to happen to your stock? It's likely going to go up, right? Because that's good news for them. That means they're making more. They're way more profitable now because they can charge more due to the interest rates going up. Right? In theory, this is just like just if I take a broad, hey, that's what's likely going to happen, right? And then the market overall increasing is good for sure. What else?
The monthly payments.
Say again.
The monthly payments.
What about it?
Just the fact that, waiting even just that month or the next time that the interest rates go up, that
Yeah.
it could just cost them to,
Absolutely.
drop down from 300 to a 275.
Yeah, absolutely. So your monthly payment's likely going to increase. Not only that, but if home values are increasing, what else? What other percentage is involved when you buy a home? It's going to go up as a result of home price
interest,
increases.
taxes, all that.
Yeah, your taxes likely will, right? But your down payment's going up too. Right? The more expensive homes become, your down payment, which is a percentage of that, is also going to increase, right? So if you're cash strapped right now and you're barely meeting that 3.5% threshold, it's time to make a move because pretty soon you're going to price yourself out if you wait any longer, right? Or it's going to be. We had a couple. Carly had some clients a month or two ago. They're looking at single family homes. Guess what they just switched to?
Townhouse.
Now they have a townhome under contract. They waited too long and the market priced them out. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen anymore, right? But as good agents, I should say as a good agent, Carly, what did she do? She helped them realize, hey guys, we can continue to look at single family homes, which are just outside the realm of reason now. And if we keep waiting too long, what's going to happen to the townhomes? Same problem, right? So what we need to do is change our strategy. Let's have a professional conversation. Let me apply my expertise and market knowledge to your situation and say, hey, maybe we push the pause button on single family and we go look at and consider some townhome options. Because that's what the market is kind of forcing you to do at this point, right? Canadian lumber tariff could cost U.S. home buyers about $1,200 per house. So I'll be brief on this one. But the word tariff has become a popular word recently, right? Like the Googling meaning of tariff increased substantially over the last couple months. What is a tariff in general? A tax specifically on what or whom?
Imports.
A tax on imports, and imports are what?
Things coming in from outside of our
Things
country.
coming in from other countries, right? Products that are not domestic. So if we're making steel in-house in America and we pass a tariff, did that do anything to the price of U.S. steel? In theory, no. It did what? Who did it affect?
In the countries.
The countries that we're importing steel from, right? We basically just said, hey, your steel is now going to cost 25% more than domestically produced steel, right? Why would a country or why would an economy do that?
So you buy domestic.
So you buy domestic, then why would they want you to buy domestic? We're not talking beers here, Brad. I'm just kidding.
To increase our GDP.
Right, because we would much rather, in theory, in some instances, it's here's the deal. If we're producing steel here on our own, locally, in our own country, we would much rather have our people buy that steel versus getting it from somewhere else. If they're buying it from somewhere else, why are they buying it from somewhere else? Because it's cheaper. So how do you make it less? How do you make it not cheaper? You slap a tariff on that bad boy, right? All of a sudden, it costs more. So in general, the consumer's going to say, okay, well, that stuff now arbitrarily costs more, so I'm going to buy it here domestically.
Which means the jobs stay here.
Which means the jobs stay here, and potentially those companies grow, which could increase jobs, right? But it's not all good, because if we're forcing you, if that stuff that you were buying 25% less is now 25% more, what is that going to do to the cost of goods?
Increase.
It's going to increase it, right? Everything made of steel, if we just made steel 25% more expensive, the companies don't just eat that expense. They pass it off to who? The consumer. The consumer. And for our commercial guy in the house, what's made of steel? Everything. Yeah. Specifically, what kind of buildings and structures? Commercial. Commercial, right? Will it affect your typical single family home? It will, but not as much. It just said on average maybe $1,200 increase. You're welcome. See, I freaked people out. I'm scared when they're gone. Yeah, Trudy's worried about her wellness, so she's getting the heck out of here. So that's it in a nutshell. There are pros and cons to it, but what's important to us when we look at it from a realtor standpoint, or the market in general, is the cost of goods sold, or the cost to build structures will increase as a result. So this was based on lumber. So $1,200 on average per increase per home. That's not crazy, but over time, that's going to continue to add to the cost of producing homes. Here's a more interesting one. Steel. 25% increase on imported steel and a 10% tariff on imported aluminum. Construction accounted for 43% of all steel shipments in the United States. Oh, by the way, when they slapped these tariffs of 25 and 10% on foreign produced or foreign imported steel and aluminum, what did domestic companies do? They raised their prices to be.
Same with the car companies.
Yeah, to be just at or below the tariff, right? They didn't just say, oh, that's great, we're just going to keep it down here. No, they said, okay, well, if before it was costing them $200, now it costs them $250, and before we could do it for $200, we'll just go to $249, right? So the cost of goods is still going to increase. What was aluminum? 25% increase, 10% on aluminum, 25% on steel. This announcement by the president could not have come at a worse time, according to the guy from the National Association of Home Builders, of course. Tariffs hurt consumers and harm housing affordability.
Housing affordability is already tight.
Right, and what are we doing to it? Compounding it, right? Like when I heard the tariff on lumber, I was like, what in the world? Like, we have a home shortage. We need to be accelerating the production of homes, and by increasing the expense of producing homes, what are we going to potentially do? Slow the growth. Slow the growth.
Just go get it from Maine.
Yeah.
It's 92% timber.
There you go.
State is.
Northwoods.
We all know Canada has 100% woods, right? So,
Yeah.
The American Institute of Architects also opposes the tariff, saying in a statement that any move that increases building costs would jeopardize domestic design and construction and the construction industry, which is responsible for billions in the U.S. gross domestic product, economic growth, and job creation. So it's understanding the second and third order effects of these things that happen economically. And I'm always asking, anytime I see a news article that has something to do with the economy, an increase in this, a decrease in this, I'm asking myself, okay, so if I play that out in my mind, how does that impact the housing industry? Because that's what I'm worried about. Am I worried about the overall U.S. economy? Absolutely. I'm worried about that. But on a day-to-day basis, I want to know what are the implications for the housing industry? Because the housing industry is one of the largest drivers of the what? U.S. economy. Absolutely. If not the driver. Right? Because we wouldn't need to import steel and lumber if we weren't doing what? Building homes and building buildings, right? I could walk out the front door here in Rochester and see all kinds of commercial buildings going up left and right, and residential, right? That's what's driving the economy. Here is the interesting thing on tariffs. It's already caused a little bit of price uncertainty and volatility, which we all know uncertainty and volatility, not a good thing when it comes to markets and people considering investing, in theory. Not all building projects use a massive amount of steel. The impact will vary by building type. Single-family homes require much more wood than metal, with steel and aluminum contributing to about 0.5% to 1% of a home's cost, according to MarketWatch. But larger buildings, including multi-story, multi-family construction, require a higher percentage of steel, meaning tariffs will have more of an impact. So we're not talking residential, we're talking who? We're talking commercial, right? So when we look at the market as a whole, we see a little bit of an increase in tariffs when it comes to lumber, steel, aluminum. Okay, residential homes, we're going to see that factored into our prices. But here's why that sometimes, it doesn't sound like much, $1,200 per home. That's not crazy, right? But we just talked about double-digit increases. So if we're having double-digit increases and then we increased the cost of goods to produce a home by, let's say, 1, 2, 3%, what are we do? We're taking that 17% increase, we're moving it up into the 20s, right? And we still have a shortage of inventory. Shortage of inventory, the cost to create homes and the price of homes increasing, interest rates going up. Yeah, gotta love that. City fees to include taxes, right? Because if you're having double-digit home appreciation, what are your taxes going to do? Yeah, they're going to say, Debbie, your house is worth more nowadays, so you're going to pay more in taxes, right?
Locally, taxes tend to lag on market conditions because
Yeah.
you
Here's what they
don't want
do.
to have to adjust
Yeah.
them too frequently.
Here's what they do. When your home value is doing this, your taxes are going to, they're going to catch up to you at some point, right? It'll be pretty slow. When your home values are doing this, your taxes, whoop, they're going to be right on your heels, right? They're going to get you about every year. It's going to reassess and get to where you were versus when you were going down, right? I experienced that firsthand. I don't know about you, right? There was a magical point in time where like taxes did this for a little bit as home values came up, but that was maybe a year or two, and then it got right back up, right?
I was even thinking like for new construction, like whack and sack city fees. And
Yeah.
those type of city fees, like RPU has a new city fee that is really affecting new home construction.
Anything to deal with permits, all that fun stuff. They're gonna increase it because the city operates as what? The city it operates the same way as
The business.
a business. The city is a business. What's the revenue stream for a business or for a city? It's taxes. That's the beauty of the government. They can just tell you what you're going to pay them. You don't have to walk into Target and decide to buy a new Xbox, right? The city just gets to say, hey, we're charging you for one whether you bought one or not. I'm being a little bit facetious right here, but that's revenue for them. If they want to generate more revenue, they look at more fees, more registration taxes. They're going to increase your property taxes. Now, in theory, those taxes are being used to do what? Provide more public good, increase the standard of living, offset infrastructure costs, right?
I always notice a huge jump in my standard of living when they increase my taxes.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do. Yeah.
And the city government people are out one side in one conversation, affordable housing is very important. We got to do what we can. And then on the other side, they're raising all of the
Everything.
everything. So builders can't provide affordable housing.
And if the city didn't raise it, then the county did.
Right.
Well, that's what's interesting, and that's why staying informed as a professional is crucial, because when you're in those conversations, you can call people out on the BS or the doublespeak. But hang on a second, you're talking about affordable housing X, Y, and Z, but if we look at the last year, you guys increased this, you increased this, you increased this, so you can't have it both ways. Which is it? Right? Put your money where your mouth is. And so I'm always looking at it from. It's important for me to understand it from the perspective of as a professional, so I can relate it to the consumer and what their perspective is. And I'm not making decisions for them, but what I am doing is educating them so they can make the best decision for themselves, right? And inevitably, the consumer is going to do what? They're going to ask you questions. They're going to ask for your advice. If someone asks for your questions and if they ask you questions and they're asking for your advice, by God, I hope you're a little bit knowledgeable about the stuff you're going to talk to them about, right? Zach, what do you think the housing market's going to do over the course of this year? Well, here's the deal. I don't have a crystal ball. Who knows what it can do? But I'll tell you what the signs are indicating. and you launch into some of the stuff we talked about. Interest rates are finally going up, the economy's taking off, but we're passing some tariffs, which is increasing the cost of the cost of production for homes, buildings, etc. Rates are going to make, all signs are pointing to affordability doing what?
Affordability going down.
Affordability is going to go down. Affordability is going to get pinched. 18, 19, 2020, affordability is going to continue to be a struggle, right? If you've got first-time home buyers right now that need or want to be in a home, they've got a critical time right now. If they're already, you know, walking a fine line of being able to make it happen or not, if they wait 3 to 4 more months, they're not going to be able to buy what it is they're looking to buy. It's our job to help them understand it. And oh, by the way, it's our job to use what we learned in the last two meetings to help them win in multiples before it's too late. That's our job. You know what happened over the weekend? I can't remember the scenario, but somebody told me that there was a home for sale, it was in multiple offers, it was also being held open that weekend. And one of the buyers that made, no, it was our listing, Carly was telling me this. Carly listed a house in Lakeville, multiple offers, and somebody held it open over the weekend. But one of the people that made an offer came to the open, brought a gift with them, and basically interviewed for the home in person. Like, that's getting creative.
Yeah.
That's getting creative. On another listing that Carly did, was in multiples, and the agent who happened to be the Keller Williams agent out of the Burnsville office said, you can reduce my buy-side commission by 1%. Not telling you to do that, but I thought that's an interesting strategy. What she's really telling us is she's done showing homes with these people, right? But at some point,
Please just take this one.
right? She's like, it's worth the 1%. Just give it to us. And they got it. So, you know, ask yourselves, am I staying informed? How am I relating that knowledge? Because, ladies and gentlemen, the stuff that we just spent 60 minutes going over is what makes you an invaluable asset to your clients. That's the value you bring to the transaction, right? So that being said, thanks everybody for being here. Miss Megan brought 2 different soups today. Thank her. They're delicious. She's a phenomenal cook. One's beer cheese and the other is
Spicy potato.
spicy potato. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. We'll do the Netflix thing next time.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
Which one did you have?
Three cheese.